name is Linda Abraham, and I am the president of Accepted and the moderator for today's webinar. Welcome to 5 effective stress-reducing solutions for GMAT GRE Success, to be presented by Bara Sapir, CEO and founder of Prep New York and Test Prep San Francisco. Probably the most anxiety-provoking part of the business school application process is the GMAT or the GRE, the aptitude test associated with applications. So we at Accepted have invited an expert in GMAT and GRE prep, and specifically in reducing test anxiety, to come and speak here today. She will discuss how to boost your GMAT score by reducing your anxiety and calming your nerves. Now, a few housekeeping items. Bara may ask a few questions during the presentation and ask you to raise your hand in response. You can do so by clicking on the hand icon, 2 icons underneath the horizontal orange arrow on your control panel. Please raise your hand when you find it. That's number 1. Number 2, as usual, we're looking forward to answering your questions, and we've set aside time for Q&A. So feel free to enter your questions in the question window, and we'll review the questions submitted and choose those that have the broadest application. If we don't have time to get to your specific question, Bara will provide some ways that you can reach her after the webinar also. It is delighted to host this webinar for Test Prep New York and San Francisco. And also to introduce Bara Sapir. Bara is a pioneer in bringing mindful and holistic human potential techniques to the test prep field, optimizing test-taking results by reducing anxiety and enhancing concentration, confidence, and ease. She draws from mindfulness, hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming, integrated life coaching, sound therapy, mindset work, creativity, and out-of-the-box thinking, and more. Bara, I want to learn about all this stuff. The floor, or should I say the mic and screen, are all yours.
Linda, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to talk with so many people who know that that getting the best test score is not only dependent on what you know, but how well you go in to take tests. So we're going to be working through these slides today, and again, I do want to encourage everybody to ask questions. I'll be able to see it, and Linda will be able to see it, and we're working here as a team to make sure that we can support you in your testing needs and getting over your anxiety. So let us start. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I started in the test prep world. Gosh, it was like the dawn of test prep when Kaplan and Princeton Review were the only choices. Worked for Princeton Review for 6 years, and what I found was that a lot of students knew everything that they needed to know when they went in to take a test, but then something happened. They were either like a deer in headlights, or they didn't feel well the day of the test, or they couldn't sleep the night before the test. And I was, at the time, a graduate student. I was at University of Michigan. I just finished art school. And I needed to think about how can I help my students really move to the next level and be the best test takers they could take, because I knew that they knew the material. And I couldn't really do that much when I was working for a big test prep company, but when I left and when I started thinking about it more and working with my own students, both my creativity students, because I taught fine arts and creativity, and also my testing students, I realized that in being an artist, that place where you get to create that doesn't have judgment, that allows me to just be in the moment, is really what made me create the best art that I could. And then I was on a huge quest of figuring out how can I get test prep students and my creativity students, but mostly my test prep students, to really get into that best headspace. And I experimented a lot with ways that didn't involve making art, but drew from what do students have experience with? Well, they have experience maybe playing sports and being in the moment when they score a goal, or being a musician and really being able to jam with other musicians, or to know the piece of music so well that they can actually lose themselves in it so they could express, or fine artists, or a reader, or a typist, or really whatever we do, when we do it at the best level, it's when we draw from our skill sets and allow ourselves to be present. So I created programs around this and combined that with content mastery and strategy, best test taking strategy, and created my company. First I was a solopreneur, and then in 2005, I created Test Prep New York and then came out to the West Coast and opened an office here in the Bay Area. And we currently work with students all over the world and work with content and work with anxiety. There's not a lot of folks that work with anxiety who understand really what it means to have a data sufficiency question and get freaked out that, do you really not have enough data to answer this question? Or not know if, you know, the right answer is, you know, in a GRE math question, you know, C, that, you know, A and B work. So enough about me. What I want to hear from you guys now, let's do the first poll. Thank you. So have you taken the GMAT or the GRE? So
I'm closing the poll. I'm going to share the results. And with 82% having voted, the results are.
Okay, great. So I'm speaking to people who know. I'm speaking to people who have been through the test and are here probably because you're feeling something about taking the test.
Almost
so
almost two-thirds have taken it already.
Yeah. Let's do the second poll now.
Okay. All right. So did you score lower than you hoped and expected? Please select yes, no, or not applicable if you didn't take a test yet. Closing the poll, sharing the results, and there with 85% having voted, two-thirds got lower than they hoped, 67%.
Well, that's certainly disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah. Besides content mastery, what prevented you from achieving your score goal? The options are anxiety, timing, both, something else, or these tests are stupid, don't ask me again.
Gotta have some humor with this, right?
Right. Close the poll.
Okay, so the bottom line is that 70, amazing. So 78% of you had both, and 2% of you said the tests are stupid, don't ask you again, but you are here. We did captivate you to come here, so thank you. I'm curious about the something else, so maybe you'll send me a quick private chat so I can know what that something else is. And 78% of you said timing and anxiety. And those happen to be the two things that most study programs really don't address. Either they'll address timing and anxiety by saying, just do more questions, and the better you feel about them, the better you'll perform, or the more questions you do, the quicker you'll get. And both of those things are true, but it doesn't really take care of the big guns of what's actually going on. So what we're going to be doing today, and I want to just talk to you a little bit about my goals, which are I'm hoping to achieve them and really give you some skills. But I'm going to talk to you about how there's other intelligences aside from your head and what you're training your head to do in performing, which is your heart and gut, and how these, when you can connect in with them, positively impact your GMAT and GRE performance. I would like to inspire you to craft and commit to a self-perception that's in alignment with your desire for success. And I'm also going to be teaching you some effective takeaway techniques that eliminate test anxiety, build confidence, okay, and increase your scores and get you moving towards doing your best. So the first thing is, what does the GMAT and GRE really test? Because if it was so important, why didn't you learn this in undergrad or on the job, right? And I often tell our students that many of the questions on the test are not necessarily questions that they really care if you know. They really don't want to know how you work with right triangles or how you know your verb tense. I mean, of course, communication is important and being an effective communicator, but similar to the MCAT, where a lot of the information that's on the MCAT is not going to make someone a great doctor, and knowing it, especially with so many computers and apps and different things that we have at our fingertips, it's really about who you are and how you perform on the test, and then how you are and how you perform as a business professional. So many of the questions are set up to be metaphors for who you are as a business professional, meaning, are you a risk taker? Do you take calculated risks? Are you a scaredy cat? Are you arrogant, or are you intimidated? So these are things that, believe it or not, we see, at least in my company, our philosophy is, let's get you to be the best business professional and business leader that you can be when you're taking the GMAT. I would rather you take the GMAT as your paragon, your ideal business person, whoever that person is, and think about right now, think about who is that ideal business person. It could be someone you work with, or it could be someone that you have learned about in school, or you've studied their career. So who would they be when they took the GMAT? Because I want you to emulate your inner mogul and motivate those parts of you that get to be that person taking the test, not the person who's arrogant and not the person who's intimidated. So there's many things that people don't tell you, and this is what I just went over, is really one of them about preparing and performance on the GMAT. And the most important thing I started off with is that tests don't only measure what you know, they also measure how well you take tests. So actually, I think we skipped a couple poll questions. Let's throw in those polls, Linda.
Okay, here we go. So the poll is, did you experience unwanted emotions concerning your test? What have you done about it? And choose the option that best describes you. Hope for the best, spoke to a doctor or therapist, enlisted some coping protocols like yoga and meditation. Option 4 is nothing, deliberately. And 5 is, I can do something about it. I'm going to close the poll and share the results.
Super interesting. Okay, so interesting. Hoping for the best. So using some kind of faith or hope or desire for the best. Okay, and then in second place, but way in second place, is enlisting some coping protocols, not that far away from nothing. I do know, I've spoken, we definitely have worked with students who have gone to doctors or therapists about this. Those are often things that take, especially therapists, a long time, you know, because therapy is a long-term commitment. So this is super interesting. I'm liking these polls, Linda.
Do you want to share the next one?
Okay, so yeah, let's share the next one.
Okay. This is a real interesting one. Do you believe, all things being equal, that you are able to achieve a top score? That's the poll now. Closing the poll, sharing the results.
Well, this is awesome. This is absolutely fantastic. So the 67% of you who have said yes, that's half the battle. If you believe that you can do this, well, you are well on your way of being able to do it. And for those of you who are at no, I'd like to try and make a commitment for you, at least for the next 45 minutes to almost an hour, that we're gonna do what we can to flip that. Now, if it's about knowledge, when you go in to take the test, you have to know what's on the test. You have to be, you're not gonna sort of draw from the universe the answers to these unless you're a very special individual, and then I don't know that you need to go to business school. But for those of you who are saying no, really think about what that means for you. And are you someone who says no in other areas of your life? And has that in any way impacted you? And for those of you who have said yes, how has that positive attitude helped and propelled you along in your journey? And for those of you who don't know, I'd love for you to just try on for today, feeling as though it could be a possibility, and just try that on and see what it feels like. So tests measure how well you take tests, which means that it's as much about mindset as it is about content mastery. So, you know, we'll talk in a little bit about the kinds of numbers that I've seen, but I've worked with students the weekend before tests, and they've gone up 230 points, and we didn't touch a question. So if we didn't touch a question and they went up all those points, it really means that, and I should say results are not typical here, right? I don't have like a little thing flashing that says that, but results are not typical that people will go up 230 points, but I've seen it. I've seen 100 points regularly, people going up. If it's nerves, it's probably hampering your score. The statistics say about 12 to 15%. We've seen things go up more. So it's no surprise that if you enter the test feeling anything but focused and calm, you are going to risk subpar performance. So what we want to talk about today is, how do you achieve focus and calm? And for some of you, you have reached out And let me see if I can look at those numbers again. It said that,
Is that the poll you want, or do you want a different poll?
the poll about like people have gone to yoga and some people have just had hopeful thinking. So most of you have said that you had hopeful thinking. But today I'm going to give you some skills and some techniques that you can actually use in place of hope. You can have hope, but then just kind of like have that be the whipped cream and cherry on top of some techniques.
That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, so 59% said they hoped for the best, and 17% said they enlisted some coping protocols. So I want to see that number up, not just in this room, but really everywhere, because the protocols of getting into a better headspace and mindset is not just amazing for the GMAT and GRE, it's actually amazing for life. So what I feel like we're doing at our companies is there's something in Judaism called madrigas, which are the levels. I feel like we raise what test prep can do, which is a necessary evil for so many people applying to business school, and we raise that madriga into it being a positive change universally. We make it just a better level. So I'm really proud of that and that we do that. So conventional wisdom is if you study hard that your high test scores will follow. But if you're unmotivated, you're fearful, you're nervous or anxious, you're not going to be able to work to your potential. So maybe some of these words here remind you of yourself, something that you might feel. You might get a stomach ache, you might be forgetful, you might get sweaty, or you might get chilled, or you might get chills. There's a lot of ways that anxiety and nervousness manifest. Everyone is unique. You can have any sort of combination cocktail of test anxiety. Some people might not even recognize it as test anxiety. They just know that they just happen to not feel well and they haven't put two and two together. So let's talk about why do you continue to feel test anxiety, since I know that most of you probably don't want to feel it. So in 1948, B.F. Skinner, a psychologist, wrote Superstition and the Pigeon in the Journal of Experimental Psychology. And in this, the people in the lab regularly put food in to the cage. But what the pigeon did was it kind of did this interesting dance. Like first it would lift up its wing and then it would lift up its leg. And it didn't matter what it was doing, but whatever it was doing at the moment that food came down, the pigeon associated that movement with getting the food. Kind of like when people make fun of rain dances, or, you know, people have superstitious sorts of ways of moving through space and time. Like superstition, they saw, was something that the pigeon had as well. So this is analogous to what happens in humans. We'll go into a test and we have a tiny bit of anxiety. Even if we studied really hard, we're going to be judged. We're going to be judged against our peers. We're going to be judged, you know, the teacher's going to think something. And that little bit of anxiety might feel a little bit like excitement. But let's say you do really well on the test. Well, the next time you go in, your mind can't really tell the difference between that anxiety and you doing well because you studied. So the mind actually wanting what's best for you, only wanting what's best for you, will say, I better like get some more of that anxiety, because that was the secret sauce. That was the special secret sauce. And if I have more of that, then I'm going to do even better. But that's your unconscious mind doing that. So the next time you go into the test, you're going to feel a little bit more anxious. So this is how anxiety builds up until you're an adult and I meet you at, 18 to 25 to 35 to 40, and you've got full-blown anxiety because you've never done anything about it. And I'm sorry to say, but the hoping doesn't get rid of it. The hoping drives you to a webinar like this. The hoping drives you to yoga and to some holistic modalities, but it won't get rid of it itself. So here's some facts. 30 to 35% of college students are handicapped by test anxiety. And I'm clear about that handicap because I think you can have a show of hands here, can't they, Linda? They can kind of like raise their hands.
Yes, absolutely.
You raise your hand. How many of you felt a little anxious at some time, right? Just a little bit. But this is saying statistically that 30 to 35% of people are handicapped. So
you got about 25% raising their hand here.
great. So stress relief techniques have shown to increase scores by 12%, but like I told you before, I've seen it a lot higher. I've seen 100 points going up, which could be, you know, starting at a 500, what percent is that? Starting at a 600, what percent is that? That's much higher than 12%. And this happens even the day or the weekend before a test. So I also did some surveys with accepted.com. They gave me the permission to really hear about some of the people that come through to talk to admissions consultants, because that's a part of the process of it's a great part, should you partake in it, to make your candidacy the best that it could be. And working with Linda and her group will help you put your best foot forward and present yourselves in an awesome way. And what they told me that 88% of the folks that they talked to said they felt anxiety, and 67% felt nervousness. And notice that there's a nuance here. Anxiety and nervousness are two different things. It's kind of like Eskimos have all these names for snow. Well, there's all these different ways of expressing not feeling our best when we go in to take a test. And of those numbers of people, the folks at accepted.com told me that 89% felt this way specifically about the GMAT, and that 56% felt this way about interviews. So I found this to be super interesting, and I wanted to share it. 89% of them have heard students say, I'm not a good test taker. I would say I hear that. That sounds about accurate with the number of students that we work with, 89 to 90%. Now, remember what I said before. Remember I was like really loving that person who said 100% that she was a yes, and she or he like jumped at that immediately. Well, when you say that you're not a good test taker, you're reinforcing a negative belief. And when we reinforce negative beliefs, then we sort of move in that direction. We create our own reality. Now, they also reported that students are on a continuum between feeling overly confident, AKA arrogant, or intimidated. So there is a continuum of what people feel. I've certainly seen people who are arrogant that just like kind of curse out the test and say a lot of expletives. And then I also see people who are like, I'm never a good test taker and this test really scares me, right? 77% believe scores would increase with more focus. I definitely believe that focus is important, but if you're too anxious, what do? 67% believe scores would increase with enough sleep. Sleep is super important for just about everything. It's the time when our bodies regenerate. It's the time when our bodies heal and we get into a better groove across the board. And 56% believe that scores would increase with more confidence. So Linda, you saw those scores too. Was there anything that you wanted to say about any of them, or any anecdotes?
No, there? Thank you for the shout out.
Okay.
I know that just in general, when you think positive, you do better.
In everything. Yes. In everything. Yes. It's pretty amazing. I mean, try it. It works. Okay. So tests, again, don't only measure what you know, they also measure how well you take tests. And before we actually do the next poll, what I want to do is I want to do something with everyone here. I think everyone can see me. Okay, so we're going to do an exercise. So wherever you are, I want you to stand so that you're facing the computer. It's going to be 3 minutes, and I want you to lift your right arm up so that you can look down and you can see your middle finger. So, and I want you to be in a place where you're not going to hit anyone or anything, right? So like you want to have full clearance. So you lift your arm up, you look to see where your finger is, and I'm going to tell you to close your eyes in just a minute, so just humor me and just be part of it so that you can really see what the exercise is about. So keeping your legs, you know, bent a little bit and your feet on the ground, I want you to twist to the right and just notice where you stop. Just see where you stop and then twist back around and put your arm down. And then move your shoulders a little bit. Take a deep breath. Take another deep breath. Okay, great. Now close your eyes. So everyone close your eyes. No one can see. I can't even see. You can see me, but I can't see you. Okay, so in your mind's eye, your eyes are closed. Imagine that you're lifting up your arm, and in your imagination, you're twisting around to where you first stopped. You see yourself there, super easy, no big deal. Now go 30% farther. You go 30% farther, and then twist back around to where you're facing the computer screen again, all in your mind, and open your eyes to where you see me. Hi, whenever you're ready, okay? Take a deep breath. Move your shoulders a little bit, and close your eyes. In your mind's eye, only in your imagination, imagine that you're lifting up your arm again, super easy. In your imagination, you're twisting around to the right, first where you first stopped, then 30% farther, and then 50% farther. Super easy, no big deal. You see yourself there, then twist back around to where you're facing me again, and whenever that is, you open your eyes. Take a deep breath. Exhale, move your shoulders a little bit. Okay. Okay, and now close your eyes. In your mind's eye, imagine that you're lifting up your arm, you're twisting around to where you first stopped, then 30% farther, and then 50% farther, and then you just keep going. You're like a cartoon character, superhero, going all the way around, and all the way around, and around and around and around, and it's kind of funny. You're kind of like a rubber band, or you're kind of like a swing that gets twisted around, and you're going around and around, and around and around and around and around, and you're starting to gain speed, and you're going around and around, all in your imagination, around and around and around and around, and around 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 and around, until finally you start to feel yourself slow down, slow down. You're still going around and around and around, around and around and around, slowing down until you stop. But then you start to feel that tug in the other direction. So you're in that liminal place of stopping and then starting to move in the other direction around. And then around again, and around again, and again and again, and again and again, going around and 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 around, until finally, whenever it is, you're going around and around, slowing down, going around and 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 around, slowing down, and then you stop. And then you open your eyes, take a deep breath in, exhale, move your shoulders a little bit, and now lift up your arm the way that you did before, and then I want you to do the same thing. Keep your feet planted, but twist as far as you can go. Go as far as you can go, and notice where your middle finger actually lands. Okay? Notice where it lands, and then I want to hear from some of you. Just type in the chat room to everyone, what happened? Did you go farther? Any sort of feedback? Did you stay the same? Did you not go as far? I don't know if you did it, Linda, because you're moderating.
I did do it. I went farther.
Right, but we didn't do any calisthenics in between, and we didn't do any stretching, right? But you went farther. So why is that important? Well, the keys to success are to be able to believe that you can do this. And the reason that I like this exercise is because we didn't do anything that really talked about you getting that much farther. I mean, we talked about you getting farther in your mind, but we didn't do yoga. We didn't do anything physically to make a difference. But just thinking about it made a huge difference. So the kinds of keys that to success beyond what you study come from within. It starts with hoping to do your best. That 59% of you said that you felt, and it moves into creating other perfect landscapes and perfect conditions for you to perform your best. So we're going to learn now, and what we just did, that's the very same thing that sports psychologists do with high-performing athletes. And we're going to go over some stress management techniques for the months, weeks, and days up until your test. So Linda, let's do the next few poll questions.
Sure, here you go.
Okay, have you ever used holistic or mindful modalities like meditation or visualization?
Yes, no, maybe. Do I need to admit it here? It's a very safe space. You can admit it. Okay. I'm going to close the poll and share the results.
Great. So 57% of you have tried these different modalities. And for the 2 of you, we'll try to make you feel safer. The 2% of you, we're going to try to make you feel safer in the next little bit. Let's
okay.
do the next one.
And the last one, here's the last one. Holistic and mindful modalities like meditation and visualization. Please select one. I guess the one that you most identify with are weird, won't work for me, are effective strategy, I don't know, but I'm open to learn and try. Huh? Okay, which do you most identify with? I'm going to close the poll and share the results. So 6% of you said they're weird. 6% said won't work for me. 35% said are effective strategy. 52% said I don't know, but I'm open to learn and try. And 2% said, huh, I guess it's still not a safe enough space. Okay,
not yet.
Go ahead.
But it's still it might be the same 2%.
Right.
So, okay, so this is really revealing. So thank you for coming, because you just actually, that twist around is something that draws from neuro-linguistic programming. Okay, and I don't want to get into too much technical detail about what these different pieces are, but really the reality that we live in, I think Ford said, whether you're right, whether you believe you're right or wrong, you're right, meaning that if you believe you're right or wrong, then that's what that you believe, right? And if you believe that and you're hopeful that you can do it, well, then you're going to be moving in that direction. So think about what your personal success plan is. So how are you studying? Okay. Are you learning to your personality and learning style? Meaning, if you're someone who learns by seeing things, well, then you're going to want to learn these tests by actually looking at graphs and actually looking at charts and actually being very visual. If you learn by doing, you're going to want to do things. If you learn by listening, you might want to listen to GMAT and GRE instruction rather than actually reading it in a book. What is your test taking strategy? Time management. There was a bunch of you that said that time management and anxiety, those were the two that you said, both of those were the issues that you had. Well, the way that you deal with time management, we have found that the most effective way is increasing your reading speed. Why? Because if you can increase what you're reading, then you've got more time to do what the test is asking you to do. So you can actually learn to read more quickly. You only need to read, if you can get your reading speed up to about 450 words a minute, you're in you're in like the perfect zone. And most people read between 150 and 250 words a minute. So once you're conscientious of it, things happen very quickly. We actually teach that because we see that it makes a big difference. Having a balanced lifestyle and positive mindset. And what we're talking about today is the positive mindset piece. So let's talk about listening to the different parts of yourself. Now, most of you have probably, those of you who have taken the test, even just taking the test is actually part of promoting your head intelligence, okay? Whereas the heart is how you feel and the gut is sort of your really, it's how you feel, but it's a kind of intuitive sense. So the head is mastering the material, able to retain and recall it at will. The heart is that hope that you were talking about, but it's also dedicating that time and focus. It's the desire. The desire to take a test is really not in taking the test. It's really becoming the business professional that comes after business school, right? It's really looking way ahead to see who you are. And also the gut part is, are you fully present? Are you engaged and not distracted? Now, just think for a moment of where you are right now and think about how are you igniting your head? Well, you're listening to me and what I have to say. You're igniting your heart because you showed up, right? You showed up to even though that 2% of you that don't feel completely safe, you showed up. You have a desire to learn. And 52% of you said that you were open to try and learn. That's trusting that's actually somewhere between heart and gut, because you feel like it might be a good thing, but you don't know. And your gut is like, what feels right? What, you know, so many of the decisions that like people, they've done studies on how do people make decisions. Some people just are very logical about it. They'll say, well, this looks really good on paper, so I'm going to go for it. Other people say, it looks really good on paper, but not sure I want to do it. It doesn't feel right. And then other people are like, I don't even need to see the paper, or even like, it's just, this is not the right time for me to do this, right? Buying a house, dating, it all connects. So the heart and the mind and the gut all together help inform the decisions we make. And then some of us have ones that we follow more than others. So the most important thing about your performance on the test is your presence, is being present. And if you think about it, really all of life, most of the stuff that we do, it's about being present. That's what meditation is based on. Always coming back to the breath, always coming back to looking at the candle flame, always coming back to the walking movement, always coming back to the thing that you're going to be putting your mind on. And what that does, what meditation does, and how it is successful for people and how it works outside of the meditation class or the meditation time, is that the more you hone that practice of choosing to be present, the more that you're present in all other areas of your life. So think about the places where you get plugged in and you get juiced up. For some people, it might be their synagogue or church. For other people, it might be meditation. For other people, it might be exercise. It could be nature. So those places that you go in and you plug in and you feel your best and you feel connected to something bigger than you, or something inside of you that you know that is bigger than how you're showing up, that informs you to be present. And it's different for everyone, and they're all right. Trust your hunches. They're usually based on facts filed away just below the conscious level. And it's the same thing about following your hunches when you take a test. I'm sure you've all heard, it's pretty common knowledge that the first answer that you get at when you're taking a test is usually the correct one, because that's being informed by a lot of other things, not just what you're doing right there in the moment. But we always take all of the experiences that we've had, both in the study and both in real life examples, to bring us to the very moment that we're in right now, to allow us to make the choices that we make. And I encourage everyone to continue to do that. So we did this, the Powerful Mind exercise already. I jumped ahead and we did that. So let's talk about these different modalities that we've sort of been throwing out as different kinds of things for you to check out. And I'm happy to talk with any of you at any time about this, and I'll be giving you ways to get in touch with me. And you've probably seen these like on the back of, like I think the Village Voice will have ads for in New York, or, you know, Common Ground for hypnotists. And these are things that have been around for centuries. Meditation is really similar to hypnosis. In fact, I had an assistant a long time ago who had said to me, you know, I should check out hypnosis for my students. And I realized that what I was doing with them was a combination of hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming, because it's something that we naturally do. We go in and out of what's called a state of trance all the time. For example, if you are with if you're at home and you're watching a TV show and someone walks in the room and you don't notice it, well, that means that you're in a state of trance. And when you're in a state of trance, your unconscious mind is highly suggestible. So at that moment in time, it's really good to give yourself positive thoughts. So hypnosis gives you those positive thoughts so that you can actually get to the next level of what you really want to do. So when we talked before about B.F. Skinner and that pigeon and about test takers and anxiety, the hypnosis will unseat that feeling that I want to feel anxious because then I'll do better on the test. It's like, no. Too much anxiety will make you actually not do well on a test at all. Guided visualization is similar to hypnosis. It's when, and we'll do a little bit in a few minutes. Sound healing has to do with, think about when you go into a restaurant and they're playing beautiful classical music, and then you just sort of settle into the experience of eating the food that you're eating, versus going to a rave or going to a club and then playing really intense music and you getting into that. Well, music around us helps us. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then these are these other pieces that, that we use, and we'll use some of them today. So what does a tennis ball have to do with the GMAT and the GRE? Well, there's something called an inner game and an outer game. So think about it. When you go in to take a test, you've got, and we'll use the GMAT. Both of them are on computer screens, so it doesn't really matter. You go in, you have all of you've got the paperwork to fill out, you've got to show ID, you've got, for some of them, fingerprinting. I mean, there's a whole process. Then you sit down and there's the questions, and there's the computer in front of you, and then there's the seat you're sitting in and the desk you're at, and they've done a great job of kind of homogenizing the experience so that whether you're in Calcutta or you're in New York City, you're going to have a similar.
Bara, you
but
just
still,
cut out for a minute. Could you go back to where you said a similar? That was the last word that I heard.
Oh yeah, so you'll have a similar experience no matter if you're in LA or in New York, or they want the experience to be homogeneous across the board. So really the factor is you've got the same test and the same questions that are cycling through at different times in different ways because they're drawing from thousands of questions, but you're the deciding factor here. And you going into the test, you have an inner game. It's how you feel, it's how you perform. So are you how you feel? Are you fully alive? Are you completely enough? Are you your heart's desire? Are you the love that you seek? You get to decide who you are, and you get to cultivate that belief. So a tennis player, and this is from the Inner Game of Tennis, which was very popular in the 1970s. So these are some very common complaints. When I'm practicing, I play great, but then I go into a match and I fall apart. Or I try really hard to do the stroke the way it says to in the book, and then every single time I flub the shot. So I concentrate on what I'm supposed to, but then I lose track of something else. So these are really common tennis player complaints. Look at the test taker complaints. They're the same. I'm practicing, I do amazing, I do a diagnostic, I do great, but then I go to the testing center, I fall apart. Or I'm trying really hard to answer a question, I've figured it out in the book, I've done all the homework, I'm really good at it, but then I go to take the test and there's the question again, and I'm like, WTF, right? Like, what am I gonna do? So also there's this idea that we have in our mind a critic and a cheerleader. So the inner game, succeeding at this, means that you just move through flow. That idea of being in the moment and having presence means that the inner game, you get to be on a surfboard and not on a busy LA street during rush hour traffic, right? Where you're stopping and going and stopping and going. You want to be in flow. And this activity is one in which you're fully immersed and you're energized and you're fully involved in what's happening, and success follows because you're in the process of the activity. These are different flow states, and we talked about this way in the beginning because I talked about being an artist, that my best work came when I was in what was called a state of flow. So you can achieve this too, because I promise everybody on this call has been in a flow state, just like I know everyone moves in and out of a state of trance. It's just what we do. It's just how our brain works. So if you find that you say, I never do well on tests, and we had a really high percentage of accepted.com folks saying that students have said this, well, who do you want to listen to? Who do you want to listen to? I just saw that awesome movie, Lady Bird, and I watched how the protagonist listened. Like, was she listening to her mother, or was she listening to what she felt was right? And we get lots of messages from people around us all the time, from our peers, our bosses, our subordinates, our colleagues, billboards, TVs. Who do you want to listen to be your best self? And you've got to be your own best advocate. And the more that you're your own best advocate, you're going to also welcome the people around you to be advocates for themselves and for you. So if you find that you've got this inner critic, you want to fire it. It's only you versus you. When you go in to take the GMAT or the GRE, it's you against you. So being in flow and being present allows you to be in that best state, flow and presence. So let's talk about some activities that you can do to be in your best state. So the first thing is writing down the bones. So many students, especially those who learn best by reading and writing, but all of us have pent up feelings. Sometimes they're really happy and sometimes they're really sad. And so what do? Well, you could go and you could play a tennis match, or you can do some boxing, or you can go for a run, or you could, but another activity to do if you're at work or you're during study and you can't get out is to discharge and express your truth by writing it down. And setting yourself up in a practice where you do this right before you start studying or right before you take a diagnostic test, and creating it almost in a ritual-like way where this is what you do before you actually start to study. If you take even 5 minutes and write down what you're feeling, what's going on for you, what your fears are, what you hope for yourself, and intentionalizing that moment, christening it or just blessing it with the highest meaning and potential, really ushers the way to move forward. So let's just take 2 minutes, and those of you who are at computers, you can type out, like in your notes, I have notes on my Mac, or if you've got a piece of paper and you're taking notes now, I'm going to time us for 2 minutes, and I just want you to write what you hope for yourself in achieving a high score on your test. And we're going to give you 2 minutes. Ready, set, go. Just going to be quiet time in the background. I know it'll take a few seconds to get some writing supplies. And if you're having trouble writing things down, just write that. Just give yourself permission to write continuously without stopping, expressing your truth and expressing this moment in time. What do you want for yourself? Okay, we're going to start to wind down. We've got 15 seconds left. Great. Awesome. So just taking the moments, it's really a gift for yourself to just take a snapshot of where you are and intentionalizing where you want to go. So that's something that we definitely have clients do. And you might find that after the test, it's something that you enjoy too. There's something that people write a lot about, gratitude, I forgot what they call them, but before you go to bed and when you wake up, to just spend a couple minutes writing down 10 things that you're grateful for, and that when you wake up, it really changes. Like, being grateful is such a gift, and we have so much to be grateful for all the time. So I encourage you to take on this practice. The next thing that I want to show everyone is it's a breathing technique. I found that a lot of students who come to us who have worked with other companies, some companies will do breathing techniques, and I think that they're really powerful. Some of them say, breathe in a certain amount of time and then exhale over a longer period of time. We're going to do something called, it's a heart math technique. So wherever you're sitting, I want you to look across from where you're sitting and just find a point on the wall. And you're going to focus in on that point and then start breathing from your heart. So imagine that as you take a breath in, you exhale and inhale from that place of your heart. And you have your heart actually being the focal place, and it's almost like your heart is breathing. And we'll do that 10 times. Just allowing the breath to go in and out, imagining it's coming right from your heart. Good. So something like this is really effective if you're finding that you're starting to just get a little bit more edgy and you're starting to feel a little bit more anxiety, like if anxiety is starting to sort of crop up, the breathing is going to actually settle and diffuse some of that. And it's particularly good when you're in the middle of the test, just giving yourself 10 seconds to just go down in speed a little bit, just allowing yourself reprieve. Okay, if you have any questions about any of these, feel free to ask questions. The question room is open. I see that we've got a bunch of questions here, so we'll get to some of them in a little bit. I want to teach a couple more techniques. So visualization exercise. We're going to do a really quick one. We already did one with the twist around. But close your eyes and I want you to bring to mind a place where you feel totally, completely comfortable. In fact, you feel enriched, enlightened, like you don't have a care in the world. For some of you, it might be nature. For some of you, it might be a cafe. For some of you, it might be your bed at home. For some of you, it might be in an airplane or hang gliding. Wherever it is, I just want you to imagine that you're right there right now. See yourself there, and then let's ignite all of the senses. So imagine that you're just in that space. What does it feel like against your skin? What colors do you see around you? What kind of movement is there? What does it smell like? What do you hear? So taking into consideration everything all around you, taking that inner peace that you see outside of you and allow that to reflect what you feel inside of you. If there's blue skies with hardly a cloud, or even if there are clouds, what does that feel like when your body sort of merges with that peacefulness? And I'll count from 10 to 1, and with each step, allow yourself to feel relaxed. 10, 9, 8, 7, more and more relaxed in this beautiful place. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. Take a deep breath and open your eyes. So visualization and hypnosis can be as quick as 2 minutes, or it could be an hour. So it depends on what you're working on. If you have some really deep-seated beliefs in yourself that you feel aren't serving you, they probably served you at some time, but you want to get back to what you really want, which is maybe you don't want to feel anxious, or maybe you don't want to believe that you can't take a test. So if those are seated in your mind and you don't believe them, but there's a part of you that's holding on to it, visualization and hypnosis will actually get you out of that habit trail. Now, this is one of my favorites. It's a neurolinguistic programming technique. It takes about 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 20 seconds sometimes. And it's how to stop a panic attack. A lot of times students will go into a test, or test taker goes into a test, you see a question and it's like, oh my gosh, that was the one thing I decided not to study, or I studied that and I don't remember it. So the way that you deal with it, and we'll go through this right now, is feel that panic. Often that panic is an emotion that moves in a circular pattern, and it will go like down your back and then up the front, or in some sort of motion. Emotion is about things moving in motion. It's energy in motion. So follow that path, and whatever direction it goes in, take it out of your body and push it in the opposite direction. I know it's a little weird. Have it be the size of a basketball, and just even if you need to use your hands, having it go in the opposite direction, use your hands. I'm going to put this on so you can see me. You can see me doing this.
No, we see you. We see you.
Okay. So imagine you're going to take it out and you're going to have it go in the opposite direction. Okay, moving in the opposite direction, have it go faster. And then throw in a time when you felt really inappropriate laughter. Like it was so not cool for you to be laughing, but you're laughing and you can't stop. It's like when you drink something and then it comes out of your nose, like it's that kind of laughter, right? So throw that in the mix, and throw in the mix someone or something that you really love. So throw that in the mix, okay? And now throw in that place that you just went to that you felt really calm and really comfortable. Throw that in the mix. And then put that back inside of you. Put that back inside of you. Take a deep breath, and that's going to stop a panic attack. Okay? So if any of you want the directions to that, there'll be a way that you can get in touch with me, and I can send you the directions, or I might have an MP3 of that I'll be able to send to folks, of just following through that. It could take 10 seconds. And if you're having a panic attack on the test, that is a way to diffuse it. So again, there's other kinds of strategies for anxiety to get over. NLP, something called EFT, which is like, it's like acupuncture without needles, okay? And thinking about who your business hero is. Who is that woman or man that you can imagine is an amazing business person that if they went to take the test, how would they do it? What would blank do? Balancing it out. Meditation, nutrition, exercise, clean air, sleep, and socializing. I know that these are all really obvious, but they work, right? So these are all examples of what you can do to be your best self and to have presence and to be positive. Even music can be effective. We have a 5.5-hour program that we use with students that just has music and exercises to move them through so they can be their best self. And it has been proven to be one of the most successful strategies for reducing anxiety. So if you like music, continue to listen to it. Make your favorite track for calming you down. Make your favorite track for when you feel most focused. There's actually music out there that has been known to help people focus. Okay? In our book, we actually have lists of different music states. And think about where you are. This is a life wheel, and I'm gonna wrap up. I have to wrap up soon. But think about where you are in all of these areas. You want to achieve balance, even if during the study time things are a little bit off. But where are you? Do you have enough downtime? Are you feeling good about your career? And put dots on where the best is towards the outer circle. And if it's something that you feel depleted in, put it in the middle circle. And then take the time to really see, like, are these going to be effective in your whole study process? Because the more balanced we are, we go into the test feeling more balanced. So this will be available to you as well. These are the things that you can do the months, weeks, days, and day of the test. I'm a big proponent of self-care. So exercise, mindful practices, and nutrition, that should be done months before. Whereas weeks before, you want to make sure that you've got a schedule, that you have both the support and self-care happening. And then, you know, the days before, make sure that you have food coming. Like, it's amazing because now I can tell my students to get food delivery service for the days that, you know, the week leading up to the test, so that you don't have to worry about cooking and cleaning. It's super easy. And also start to plan how you're going to celebrate after the test. You want to go to the test center and chart out how you're going to get there and how easy it is to get there. The night before, make sure you sleep well. And yes, it's a correct thing. The night before, that's a really important night, because if you have trouble sleeping and you haven't worked on it, at least you had sleep the night before. The night before the test, make sure you have everything ready. And then the day of the test, you want to implement whatever support tools you've ignited through your test prep process. And then you just ride the wave into greatness. So I'm going to stop here and see if we have any questions specifically to what we've gone over. And then I'll quickly tell you about some resources. But are there any quick questions?
Okay.
I know that there's a bunch of questions here.
There are a few questions. One is from Ashley. I just took the GMAT this past Friday, and unlike the first time I took the test, I was remarkably stress and anxiety free. Not nervous, nothing. Practice tests and work was doing great, and I went in super confident for once, but it still didn't translate into my test score. I'm just not good at standardized tests. Clearly, showed once more by the test I just took. How can you explain that? It's a good question.
Well, I think it's a great question, and I guess the first thing I would want to know is how have you studied, and how do you know that you know everything you need for the test? Have you taken 3 to 5 diagnostics ahead of time, and are you scoring at the level that there should be no surprise when you go in to take the test? If you've taken the diagnostics ahead of time, you'll know what score you're going to be getting. There's no surprises. So I'd want to know, what is the caliber of materials you're using to study? What are you using, and what are you scoring? And really, how do you know that? I mean, what indication do you have that you're not a good test taker? Do you have other proof of that? And if that's the case, it could be that you got over the anxiety, but we have to change that belief system that you have for yourself. And that would be a hypnotic piece. But I would be super curious about your actual study, like how you've been studying, what materials you've been studying, and what kind of diagnostic evidence you have that you should be scoring higher.
Okay. Great. Another wonderful question from Jab. How do I find balance between positive thinking, turning into wishful thinking, and being realistic?
So I think that all of this exists on a spectrum. So positive thinking could always be, really big thinking, and similar to that turnaround exercise that we did in the beginning, no human is able to twist all the way around. But in thinking that we could twist a little bit farther meant that we did. Did we wish that there was no wishing really that took place in that exercise, but we were able to get there. So being realistic, I think, is what propels us, and similar to the last question that I answered from Ashley, which is that you got to do the work. It's like a really sobering thing to just get in the trenches, learn the material that you need to know, do the diagnostics, listen to whomever you're learning from, what you need to learn, study where your strengths and weaknesses are. And the wishful thinking, it's just fluff. Wishful thinking is fluff. Positive thinking is powerful. So I think finding the balance, it's really between the positive thinking and being realistic more than the wishful thinking, because that's where you wanna to draw the positive thinking from. Once you see that you're improving, it's easier to be positive, right? So that's how I would go ahead with that piece of it.
Could I? This is definitely not my area of expertise, but in listening to you, the thought occurred to me: the difference between positive thinking and wishful thinking is doing the studying and imagining success, while at the same time, and wishful thinking would be just imagining success and not doing the studying.
Yeah, it's like, wow, I wish I had the time to study.
Or it's
positive is like,
I'm going to test. I don't need to study. That would be wishful thinking.
That could be wishful thinking also. And I feel that positive is like, it also could be linked to an action directive. Positive is like, I'm going to do great on this test, and I'm going to find time to study in my schedule today. And then actually propelling you to go into your calendar and put down these are the blocks of time that I'm going to actually study. Wishful is it's just a little bit, it's a little wimpy, you know, like, wow, I wish I could get a really good score. Well, how are you going to do it?
Right.
How are you going to get there? Yeah. So it's on a kind of a continuum.
And positive thinking is combined with the actions that will allow you to achieve.
I believe
needs
that
both.
positive thinking is the ability to look at ourselves and see the positive, kind of like looking at our world and being grateful. It's a little bit more rooted. Wishful thinking just kind of, it's a little just like kind of thrown out there. It's not attached in the same way as anything like, wow, I wish I could go to, I mean, sometimes it is. I mean, this is all kind of technical, but I feel that positive thinking is just more powerful. Mm-hmm. Positive has, I mean, it even sounds more wishful, sounds like water. Like it sounds very, very kind of soft. Positive, you've got that punch with positive thinking. Like it has a little bit more weight.
All right.
To it. Probably a linguistic reason for that, or a linguistic read of it. So we have a GMAT a study guide that is for sentence correction. However, the first 150 pages has many exercises. It probably has like a number here, 30 plus exercises for peak performance. So this is it's available online as an ebook. And even if you're not taking the GRE, it'll go into some more detail of some of the things we did. Plus it has Chinese medicine and aromatherapy and music, and it's got a lot of things. Or just taking a look at it on Amazon will give you the opportunity to really kind of rethink about how you want to go into the test center. We also have an audio course, which is 5.5 hours, doing some of these different exercises that we just did. There's about 30 to 35 exercises on there that help you get into the best mindset. And then this goes into more detail of what we talked about. And we combine this with our tutoring. And we believe that the tutoring and the coaching that we do helps optimize test taking potential by aligning you intellectually, emotionally, intuitively for the test and for life. So if you would like to talk more about any of this, and if you'd like a learning quiz and a copy of the life wheel, plus I think that the panic, the backward spin would be, or the spin piece that we did earlier, I have an MP3 or write-up of it. Get in touch with me. I'm also offering a 20-minute free strategy session. So if you go to this, the application or registration here at this URL, tinyurl.com/full potential strategy session, you can sign up for a 20-minute, it asks a bunch of questions about who you are, so I know ahead of time. And then I can talk with you for 20 minutes. I can talk to you about what happens when you think you're not a good test taker. What are some things that you can do that we didn't get to go over in this webinar today? And then if you just get in touch with me, that's fine also. I want to thank you, Linda, so much for the opportunity to speak to all of these people. And everyone is welcome to reach out. I'm happy to support you in your test taking situation and getting you out of your own way so that you can be the best test taker, maximizing your scores and minimizing your stress. So,
okay,
any
great.
questions?
Thank you so much. There's one question here that from several people, and maybe we can address it just before we part, okay? If I can't sleep the night before the exam, do you have any tips or remedies? This is from at least 2 people that I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, so it's good that you're asking me now, unless your test is tomorrow. The way of dealing with sleep is something that you're going to want to experiment with. A progressive relaxation is really great. Listening to like music, milk and turkey are things that you can do. What usually helps you fall asleep? For every person, it could be different. It could be aromatherapy. It could be accounting. It could be a self-relaxation, which would be kind of a self-hypnosis and imagining the positive and moving forward. And it could be really taking inventory into how have you fallen asleep before. It's a much larger question than, it involves individual habits. of people. It's even really hard. I mean, some students go to different cities to take tests because if the test centers are all booked and they have to sleep in hotels. So how do you sleep better if you're not in your own bed? So you want to take stock in how do you typically fall asleep. Lavender is something that's both helps with focus and also helps people relax. Chamomile tea is really effective. So it could be herbal. It could be getting a massage the day before the test. It could be taking a warm bath. So a lot of it is common sense, and some of it is when you have some of these techniques, it's actually putting in place a self-hypnosis protocol to help you fall asleep. Okay. So I know that I threw out a lot of answers, but there's a lot of different directions to go.
All right, Bara, somebody's asking for the URL for the 20-minute session, so can you maybe go back? Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right, I want to thank you, Bara, for this very, very informative GMAT-GRE positive thinking webinar. And I want to thank all members of the audience who are here today, who've participated, provided questions, answers, and obviously shared their very valuable time. So thanks to you two also. As you leave, please take a minute to complete our short survey. We really value your feedback. You can view this webinar early next week. We will send out an email letting you know when it's available. And after you ace the GMAT or the GRE using the techniques learned today, if you want help with your application, whether it's for an MBA or another graduate degree, keep Accepted in mind. We're happy to help you with your application essays, resume, interview prep, or just provide experienced advice. Thank you again, and best of luck with your GMAT or GRE. Bara, thank you again, too.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.